let's call the meeting to order. Let's get going.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. My name is Pete Walter. I'm the planning manager and staff liaison to the Natural Resources Committee. And let's do quick intros. I'll hand it over to Brian.
Okay, I'm Brian. Am I the associate chair, Pete, or
I think you're vice chair.
Vice chair of the committee. I'm just at the beginning of my second term with this committee. My background, I have a long background, somewhat long ago now, 10 years ago, working for the U.S. Forest Service in more of an operational capacity, but did lots of work around pest stuff, particularly around Asian longhorn beetle. And I'm on this committee because I care about our community and I want to participate, and I felt like this was a good way.
Thanks.
I guess, Dave, you want to go next? I see you there.
Sure. I'm just a simple member of the committee. I'm about 8 months into my first term. And I have not very much background in natural resources, although I do work in watershed management adjacent territory and have some professional involvement in that as far as the Clackamas River. I care about natural resources as little as I know about them comparatively, and I care about our community, and I'm happy to pitch in wherever I'm able.
Nice. How about Emily next?
Hi, I'm Emily. I live in the Rivercrest neighborhood, and I'm about halfway through my first term. I'm also active on the Parks Committee, and I have been involved with the Citizens Involvement Committee in the past as well. My day job is running an online plant nursery, and I work a lot with integrated pest management, a variety of insect pests and fungal pathogens, and I'm passionate about our parks in Oregon City.
Nice. And Doug, I think you might be part of the group that appointed me. Do you want to go next?
Yes. Unfortunately, I've missed most of the meetings since I've been appointed, and I apologize to you, particularly since there are not very good excuses involved. My involvement in the Natural Resources Committee preceded its existence, and I was on the City Commission when it was created by the City Commission, and then when it was recreated by the City Commission. My major involvement is as a county board member of the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council, which primarily streams that they cover in their total are Abernathy and the Parrot and Beaver Creek complex. And professionally for 20 years, I worked as a statistician supporting researchers working biology researchers working with the Yakima Confederated Tribes of the Yakima Nation.
Well, Doug, I think I can speak for the whole group when I say we are so excited to have you continuing to serve with us, and excited to learn from you and follow your lead in a lot of ways. And I just want to thank you for all that you've done for the city and this body.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Hi, Tom. We just did a round of intros, so you're right on time. But Brian, do you want to ask the committee about the agenda and whether they're cool with it?
Yeah, let's move through that. So let's talk about the adoption of the agenda. I'm going to suggest up front here that we push the discussion about NRC Applicant Recommendations to our next meeting, just because I feel like without our chair here, I just wouldn't feel right kind of making recommendations without her having any input. Does anybody agree to that, or anybody have like a different suggestion?
I only have a request. I miss participating in the interviews of those candidates, and if I could, maybe Pete, you could send me the responses on those.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that, the whole group, if you're feeling like you need a refresher on the interviews, I can send you the link to the interview recording. And then we can either wait till the next meeting to make a recommendation, or else you could set it up so that you could individually send me your recommendation, which is the way we've done it in the past, but I'm easy either way, Brian.
Okay. Well, gosh, I'd rather move faster than slower, in my opinion. So let's go down that path, Pete, if you would,
Sure.
to just send around that information and then send out a request to each person individually for their recommendation. Thank you.
I'll set up a way for you guys to get a link to the video because it's a big file, and I'll work with the city recorder's office for you guys to be able to access that fairly easily. And one thing I wanted to mention was that I did send an email to Shannon Ehleringer asking her if she was still interested, but I have not received a response yet. So just FYI, I believe that she is still interested, so we can move ahead with the recommendation.
Okay. And
unless
for the knowledge, okay. For the knowledge of this group, are there any other, two questions, are there any other applicants, and how many positions? Is it just 2 positions we're trying to fill?
At this point, we do not have any other applicants, and we are still trying to fill the 2 positions. Yeah. And so folks can still apply. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess I'll put out the request to this group that if you know anybody, now's the time to share that this is a fun way to serve the community. And in any case, I think we like to move forward quickly so we can get some more voices in these conversations. So
okay,
let's do that as planned. Any other discussion need to be had about the agenda for the day? Does anyone see anything on there that needs to be delayed, or anyone have anything that is pressing that we should consider adding? Okay. Well, then I think, Pete, we can move past that and into the presentation.
Okay, great. Some of you have already met Tom Kissinger virtually online. He's our new Parks and Recreation Cemetery Manager. I think I got that right, Tom, but I'll let you introduce yourself and what you're going to speak to the NRC about this evening. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So Pete, I did just send you a copy of the application. If you, when the time comes, if you could share the last page.
Okay.
All right, guys, I'm having some technical difficulties tonight. I'm on my iPad, so it's a little hard to share. But yeah, so as Pete mentioned, I'm Tom Kissinger. I'm the new Parks and Cemetery Manager for Park and Rec here at Oregon City. And that role really encompasses kind of the land management side of Parks and Rec. So, you know, our different various natural areas, our sports fields, all that type of stuff. So just a little bit about me for those of you that I haven't met. I came from Marion County, where I was the parks supervisor, worked at Marion.
I lost you, Tom.
Yeah. See his mouth moving.
Oh,
Lost your
I
sound.
can hear you.
Giving me unstable network connection.
Oh, we got you now. We can hear you now. Boy, you think, I hate to do this, but maybe you could turn your camera off.
Yeah.
I'll turn my camera off. That helps.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yep.
Let me just dial up. So you were saying, Tom, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Just, natural resources has been a big part of my career. Worked a lot in fire restoration down in Marion County after the 2020 wildfires. Doing large restoration work down there, and excited to do more here. And I think this is kind of our first little restoration project that we're doing, and it is a pollinator garden. And with that, Pete, if you could pull up.
I will share the last page here. One sec.
Yeah.
Where is it? Oh, there it is. Does everybody see?
I can see it.
Okay. And I can zoom in as well. Just tell me to zoom in on stuff.
Perfect. Yeah. So just a little context. This is the river access trail area just off of South Washington Street. So you kind of see the parking lot there and the little loop around. There's a section of right-of-way that's between South Washington Street and the parking lot that currently is just a kind of a grassy area, and then there's some gravel that's in there. And we've been working with ODOT and our own public works team to acquire the rights to do this pollinator garden in the area. We are currently doing the maintenance on it, but it just consists of mowing kind of this little grassy strip. So has two benefits for us. One, we get to use this area for something that's a little bit nicer, is going to provide a better experience for the community and benefits the natural environment. And it also saves us time and effort on the maintenance side. So kind of a win-win for everybody. I will mention that, this is kind of an inherited project. Denise Toyuka and John Ribley worked a lot on developing the different plant plans. They worked with Lango Hansen to kind of come up with this plan here. And this is all funded by our agreement with WES, which is called the West Good Neighbor Agreement. So I will give them a little shout out there. That money is dedicated to doing kind of restoration work and improvements in the area around the West Tri-City wastewater plant. So this is in coordination with them. We've been working on getting all these permits for quite some time, and we finally got all our ducks in a row and are ready to get started. We've got a contractor lined up, and they're chomping at the bit. They're actually emailing me yesterday asking if we're ready to get started, and Pete and his group have taken a look at this and just approved that today. So we are ready to proceed. So the idea here is you can kind of see the interspersed plantings of different, there's yarrow, there's some aster, some Oregon sunshine. Pete, if you go up a little bit, I've got my full plant list there, yeah. We've got some yarrow, we've got some aster, we've got some Oregon sunshine, some California poppy, some lavender, some spirea, and then there is also, can you go just a little bit up? There is a big leaf maple there that is existing that we're going to keep, so we'll be able to plant right around that. And this, is kind of designed so that over the season it'll continuously provide good ground cover and flowers for our pollinators. And with that, I will open it up for questions.
Thanks, Tom. I got a quick question. What is the this blue shape?
That is a great question. So they had originally designed this to be a bigger plan, and that blue shape is covering up the bigger plan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It was a budget issue, I believe.
All right. So just for folks that may not know, this is on the other side of the 213-205 interchange, which is Washington Street, where Clackamas River Trailhead is. I think you all know where that is. But, yeah.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Go for it, Doug.
It looks like most of the species you listed there are natives. Is that right?
That is correct. Yep.
Does that include the lavender?
I believe the lavender is native. Yeah, that's the Munstead, which should be native.
Okay. Well, that's great. Now, you impressed me when I was talking to you once when you said we have too much grass in our parks, and I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, that is definitely a big focus of mine.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say thank you for taking the initiative with public works to get this project going. This is really committee for so long. It's nice to thank you. And I'm sorry, I got disconnected there briefly, and I'm sorry if this was already stated, but what is like the total square footage of this?
And I'm going to reshare. I lost the screen. Go ahead, Emma. Keep talking.
This area?
The square footage, that's a good question, Pete. It's in the application. I think I've got that on my phone.
Yeah, 1 second.
Yep.
Just a ballpark.
Yeah, I've got it right here. Hold on 1 sec.
Okay. Alrighty. Technology.
So it's 0.22 acres approximately.
Okay, thank you. I know that area generally, but yeah, that's helpful. And then also, just Doug, you had inquired about the lavender. Lavender is an English plant, Mediterranean.
Emily, we lost your.
You know, it's Eurasian.
Emily, I don't think we got that whole.
Do you want to repeat that, Emily?
Oh, I'm sorry. English plant. I don't know if there's native lavender.
I think we lost you again, but it sounds like that lavender may not be native.
Did that go?
Or yeah.
Can you all hear me?
We can now.
She's here.
Actually, it's the English.
It looks like it's not, but but all the other ones, I like. Yeah, two of the best ones in terms of species of bees, number of species, and number of site visits.
Nice. Thomas, what can this body do to help you and to support this?
Honestly, at this point, just kind of informative. And as we move forward, we're looking at some other projects that are, other pollinator gardens, other restoration projects that we'll definitely bring forward for kind of advice and, kind of your recommendations. Do want everybody to be aware that we have, so part of the recent Metro Nature and Parks Bond, if you kind of remember that being in the news last year, there is some local share funds that are specifically dedicated for Oregon City parks. And the focus of that money is on kind of improving our park amenities and also improving our kind of natural environment and restoration side. So the amenities side is pretty easy for us to, point to some things that are kind of outdated and figure out what we want to do there. But the restoration side, would love your input and any ideas that you guys have. We can look at scoping those out and go chase some dollars.
Nice. Yeah, I'd encourage you to continue to bring those to us. If nothing at all else, we can just be additional voices in support. I think I can speak for this group to say that we're in line. We're aligned with your goals here. I know we have some people who are passionate about pollinators, particularly Emily, but I think probably the whole group here. So thanks for bringing this.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we also got an application for the dog park, or are we getting one? That's right.
Yeah, right now we're just doing the land use compatibility statement. We'll do that.
Right. So anyway, not to divert your attention, but I know we have some dog advocates out there too.
Yeah.
I've got a question. I think you had some Arbor Day projects going on in the city parks. Could you mention them?
Yes, we worked with Pete's group for the kind of the official Arbor Day celebration there at. We ended up having it at Rivercrest. Was a great event, good turnout. Pete, do you have an estimate on numbers?
Excuse me, sorry. Well, I learned from Christine Smith, the coordinator of Friends of Trees, that they planted 60 neighborhood trees in the south neighborhoods. As far as numbers of people go, I wouldn't know, but it looked like about 50 or 60 folks showed up.
Yeah, I was going to say 60, so that seems. It was a big group. I was very impressed. Go for it.
Oh no, I agree. Go. And we didn't have the greatest weather, but it was great tree planting weather. So
exactly.
Everybody made it back to the park on time and had a little potluck. The group I was on planted down in Fairway Downs subdivision. We planted 8 trees down there. 2 natives, actually, some cascara. I believe that's a native, which is one of my favorite trees. But it's always great to get out. There's always a great feeling in those events. It just carries you along and the positivity of it. And one thing I really enjoy is getting out to the neighborhoods and seeing how happy the abutting owner is to get their tree and get it planted. And there's a definite palpable sense of excitement, particularly in areas where a lot of the street trees have been removed for one reason or another. So there's definitely some homeowners out there who are trying to raise the bar and get more trees planted in the right of way. And I think the Friends of Trees is a great partner in that process. So thank you.
Yeah, it was a great event. Was really excited to see that. And then we also had a volunteer group led by the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council up at Atkinson Park doing an ivy pull. And I'd say there were probably about 20 people at that one. I checked in on them after the Arbor Day event, and they were going strong and pulled off a bunch of ivy off the hillside there. So don't have an estimate on yardage yet because I haven't taken it. I haven't actually picked it up yet, but once we do, I'll have an estimate of yardage.
Oh, good to know.
I'm going to throw in a sort of an apology for not participating on the 6th, but I had a granddaughter who lives in Oklahoma City, and her sister and her father and I decided to go watch the total eclipse of the sun. So, which is on the 8th.
All right.
All right. Any more comment on the Pollinator Project? Okay, great. Thomas, thanks so much for being here and sharing all that with us.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I think this group shares your passion for these kinds of projects.
Thanks so much. I'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Thomas. Tom.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Tom.
Next on the agenda is public comment. I don't see anybody. Pete, do we need to pause and listen or anything? Is there any channel somebody could be on?
No, if they were phoning in, we would see them as a phone number, and I had anticipated we might get someone phoning in, but it appears that they have not. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can, as long as it's okay by decorum, reserve the right to allow public comment later in the meeting if someone shows up. So I think we can move to new business, Pete.
Great, thanks. We interviewed Shannon Ehleringer and Dan Tews, Senior, a couple of meetings ago. And the mayor wished to wait and open up keep the applications open, see if anybody else would like to apply, but did direct me to ask the committee to come forward with a recommendation on Shannon and Dan. As you may know, Brian was reappointed. So he's filled his term again. Thanks, Brian. And we just had that discussion about how we want to do this. So let's talk through that. Basically, I would make available the recording of the interviews so that whoever wants to can go back and look at them, and Doug can look at them again, look at it for the first time.
Right.
And then you could send me a recommendation, and we would not have to wait. You could individually email me your preference as individual NRC members. And that way I can communicate your recommendation to the mayor. And we won't have to wait until the next meeting in order for that to happen. So what I'll do is this week, when I get back to the office tomorrow, I'll send out a link or provide a means for you to look at the recording.
Oh, just to understand, we're voting for 2, correctly?
Correct. Yes, 2. And if appointed, that would flesh out the committee and bring us back to 7 members. Okay.
So, Pete, I'd like to request that in addition to those, the links to the interview meeting, that you include their applications. I know that they're in this agenda, but we might as well just put them all in one place to make it as easy as possible. If you can.
No, that's good. A great idea. I'll attach the applications with the same email.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I want to just make a little space here for Emily, Dave, and Doug to just ask, are you guys okay with that plan of moving forward, or do you have a different opinion there?
Sure. Otherwise, I don't think I would have been able to vote on it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine with me. Brian, I don't think you've seen the interviews either, so it'll be good to get the link.
I think I was there for them.
Oh, were you? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I was there.
Yeah, you were there because you got interviewed too.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I was interviewed also. Okay. Well, that plan sounds good, and it sounds like the group agrees, Pete.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Great. So can we move on to the next item?
Yeah, let's move on to old business.
Okay, so old business is the tree code recommendation letter that was been drafted and discussed, I think, for a couple of meetings now. I had made some initial red lines in it and put it in the packet for you guys to just take a look at. And what I had not done when I prepared the agenda was provide you guys with a link to the city commission goal, but then I realized that the city commission goal is actually in the packet, and I did attach it. So let me pull that letter up, and let's see if I can do that. All right. I thought I had. Yeah, okay. I'm going to widen things up here. And then, one second. So, let's see. So, just a few general points I want to make is I do feel like the letter could be a little shorter. I know it's important to provide the background for why you're making the recommendation, but perhaps if we can get it down to, a page and a half, that would be even better. The concern, as you guys have articulated in the letter, is for the loss. There's a number of concerns outlined in the letter, and they have to do with the loss of mature trees in the public right-of-way. The city's current policy, which is principally to avoid any liability or risk associated with sidewalk mobility problems that the abutting property owners experience. And there's a sense, a feeling that the normal practice that a certified arborist would provide in looking at the condition of the tree, as opposed to just the condition of the sidewalk, creates a situation where we are allowing removal of fairly good-sized large trees and not getting much in return for mitigation. And I'm very much paraphrasing what you said. You've also talked about other city tree codes that are a little more robust and providing examples of those, such as City of Milwaukee, West Lynn, and Portland, and how those codes place greater emphasis on preservation rather than removal and replacement. As you know, this has been a much discussed topic at the city commission level. We also have had presentations from public works staff about the sidewalk repair program. The one point I wanted to one question I wanted to put to the NRC is, given that the city commission goal right now in their is focused on promoting a public tree inventory and has not been focused on directing the committee to conduct further work on tree code. Does the NRC wish to move forward with a recommendation to make further street tree code amendments prior to a public tree inventory, given that the city commission has not requested that the committee work on that? Or does the committee wish to make that recommendation alongside with that tree canopy, public tree canopy inventory? And so that's the only question I'd have for the group this evening. And you guys can, I'll just let you guys ask me any questions that you have or make any comments about the letter.
Question, Pete. Is the commission aware that the city is losing tree canopy per year?
I don't think it's been expressed because there's no numbers associated with it.
Okay.
That was part of the last time a tree inventory was done, I think was 2007, and it was based on GIS data compiled by Portland State University and Metro. At that point in time, we had a canopy of 27%. And compared to other cities in Clackamas County, we were about on par, with the exception of Lake Oswego, who was at about 40%, which is pretty significant considering that, the amount of impervious surface that is naturally permitted in urban areas and public rights of way and parking lot and everything else. But in answer to your question, Emily, I don't know if they are. And I don't know what initiatives outside of the city are going on that might be able to arrive at a number at the moment.
Okay, I guess I'm just wondering, because in that draft we say that.
Oh, we lost you again, Emily.
The tree canopy is diminished.
Yeah, we lose losing your voice.
finished every year.
Yeah, we're not
Like
getting
there's
you
a
on
net loss
auto.
there. If that's
We're
based
not getting
on,
your audio, Emily.
there's no numbers, so is that just like kind of a,
I'm sorry, Emily, we only got about a quarter of what you were saying.
sorry, my internet is so bad today.
I think the committee can say that you're concerned about the loss of mature tree canopy, and that's true, but I just don't know whether we've lost canopy or whether we're at a holding pattern.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been part of this discussion, and the previous chair had kind of enlightened me. I had a couple of thoughts. I think the method of putting out sidewalks in the past has not necessarily been conducive to root growth and trees in the street right of way. One of the difficulties, people were talking about maybe taking the pavement and taking it around a tree. There's a great example where a developer did that in on Central Point Road. A beautiful oak tree, and he actually had the sidewalk go around it. But the thing is, that was at the development stage, and I guess in some ways I'd like to have some of this focused on future developments and how we can actually have our street trees guaranteed to have the appropriate soil conditions, depth conditions, and space conditions to preserve them for the long run. The other thing I was thinking was this, that I understand there's discussion going around about taking the sidewalk pavement around to create more space. I think there's a bit of a property owner concern there, because what you'd be doing is you'd be extending the city's right of way into a private owner's lot, and I think you would almost, if we're going to adopt that, I think it almost has to be done with property owner's consent. Otherwise, you might have some people getting very upset with it, having some of their land taken away for a sidewalk. That's just a thought, but something worth considering, I believe.
Yeah, so from what I understand, a big part of the typical tree replacement situation is a residential homeowner.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, Pete.
Oh, boy. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Not well.
Huh.
Your voice has gotten soft.
Yeah, it sounds like your mic might be away from you or something. I don't know.
All right. Let me see if I can. Oh.
Looking forward to meeting in person when we can all talk without having technical.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. All right. Can you hear me now?
No, you're still
Okay,
soft.
so there's two pieces to that. There's the typical residential street tree replacement by the typical homeowner, where they're just replacing a typical sidewalk panel. And then you've got the development review aspect, which I think, if you identify the trees ahead of time and the developer makes an effort to build around them, and the Public Works Department agrees to the alternative, then you've got something. But right now, the Public Works approach is typically to stick with their standard specification, unless it's a boulevard situation like Malala Avenue and you've got more right of way to play with. And that is the key to, I think, having long-term street tree canopy is having additional space in the right of way, additional soil volume, and just having room to work around the utilities and all of the clearances that you typically have to avoid. So there's that aspect of it. But that definitely would require code amendments in order to make that the norm rather than the exception.
Well, I guess my suggestion would be in the case where there's an issue of a current or potential hazardous situation on the sidewalk, is that maybe the possibility of exploring with the individual landowner if they'd be willing to sacrifice part of their land for that particular effort of trying to keep that tree. One thing that concerns me in many of these cases, and I've got this problem, I'm not too worried about it because they're ash trees and they're not probably going to be here long. But I do have an uplift on one of my trees, and it's not a case, I don't think, of simply replacing the piece of pavement, because that roots up there quite a distance, and they'd have to cut off a big segment of root, and that might end up being as dangerous to the health of the tree as anything else.
Right. Yeah.
But whether it comes to a question of particularly a tree that we regard as having heritage value, whether the possibility of having the homeowner sacrifice part of its property to actually preserve that tree. And maybe that can be built into this in a way that what I'm sensing is that without some more thought on this, when it goes to the commission, it might not have a much chance of passing, especially if Public Works is going to oppose the language. And you can speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, you're raising some critical aspects of arboriculture, which are currently not really part of the process right now. One is looking at the root system to see whether cutting a major root will allow the tree to survive, or will it destabilize that tree in order to facilitate the sidewalk replacement. That's normally something that requires a skilled arborist to do. And it may also entail requiring a root pruning permit as opposed to just a tree removal permit. And the skill level and expertise of the staff member who is going to take that process and make it workable and administer it, we currently don't have. So I think what you're talking about there, Doug, is pretty much baked into the code in the city of Portland, city of Milwaukee, who has an urban forestry staff and a fairly prescriptive tree code, street tree code, to allow due consideration of the root system of the tree when looking at the sidewalk repair. So switching gears to that scenario would be a big sea change for Oregon City. But at the same time, if the goal is to preserve or allow larger trees to be retained in the public right-of-way, as a certified arborist, I believe that is the way that the city would need to go. But the city commission would need to, agree that is what they want to do. So that kind of brings us back to the recommendation that y'all have started to draft. I think
just a quick question. The way I'm just reading this question again. Without a public tree inventory or a comprehensive urban forestry plan, do you think our chances of moving forward with a street tree code amendment are just not good?
It's not that, no, I don't feel that way. I think that they are mutually beneficial approach things. One doesn't necessarily depend on the other. It would be nice to have a goal that everybody agreed on and which, went through some sort of fairly robust public process, not just us, the committee, but also has input. And that normally occurs anyway through the public hearing process, but most fairly major tree codes go through a lot more public input prior to adoption than just the public hearing process. It involves, doing some questionnaires, maybe some open houses, reaching out to residents, businesses, other stakeholders, and doing a little bit more of that. I don't know, we have our comprehensive plan and the city commission has their goals. And one of their goals is a public tree inventory. So I think that part of it is already written and can be acted on. And then this tree code recommendation would augment that as well. But it is a fairly heavy lift. And it requires political support from the commission.
So Pete, I'm just trying to break it down to like, what is the question that we're, or like group of 3 questions we're trying to get to. So I think and please somebody speak up if I'm misspeaking, but can agree that tree inventory is an especially important way for us to measure, because we have to measure to gain situational awareness so we can optimize. Like that's the only way, is to have a baseline. I think this group probably also agrees that we would love to continue to influence the street tree code. But the question, and I don't know, put Doug to put you on the spot too hard, but my question is would it be more effective for us to like dig in and focus on one thing that we can all align on and get to a yes? Or could we still be just as effective if we're kind of chasing 2 targets at the same time? And I'm not suggesting that we get to an answer to this question today. It's just kind of what's going through my head. Like when I think about how do I get what I want in, work or life or whatever else, it's like, well, focus on one thing. Don't start asking for a bunch of stuff at one time, because then you get more conversation and less progress. Doug, you have any thoughts on that historically, like what's worked or what hasn't?
I don't think I have expertise in this area, frankly.
Oh.
Yeah, I know you're talking about from the commission standpoint.
Yeah.
Maybe, we're outside of the budget process. I think they already have the biennial budget in process. But I'm going to ask Pete a question. Are there sources of grant funding where we could actually fund an inventory program?
Yeah, actually I had a discussion with the Oregon Department of Forestry on April 6th during Arbor Day. The community forestry program has grants available to do exactly this sort of thing. Yes. And has received an influx of money from the Inflation Reduction Act to do that.
I think it would be great because this need has been expressed over the years. It's not a new idea. And whether we actually put forward the request that money be sought through the commission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if I identify which trees were the most important to save, and whether modifications could be put into how we manage those trees for those specific trees that are extremely significant, be they heritage trees or other aspects of the trees that are important.
Yeah. So I feel like the letter needs some work. I think it needs to be a little more targeted, a little shorter. I think that I think the committee could make a presentation on the letter by, what is it, April, May, mid-May at May 17th, I believe, is one of the dates we talked about. Let me make sure that May 15th would be the second city commission meeting in May. And if we don't hit that date, it'll be the next one after that. I think so. I would really shoot for shortening the letter down to, a couple of pages at most, and then bullet point the top recommendations.
Do we need more than one meeting to discuss this?
We really need another meeting, perhaps even a work session.
Yeah.
And if folks are available.
I can go through and try to shorten it by half. Is it possible to send it in an editable file? I noticed, Pete, that the one you sent recently was a PDF.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's probably a way to convert that, but I haven't figured that out yet.
No, it came as a Word file originally, so I've got it in Word. Yeah. It's
okay.
Just everything that gets posted has to be a PDF.
I see.
Yeah. So yeah.
But I can go through that, and I read it pretty thoroughly and can see where some consolidation would be possible.
Okay.
I love that as a next step. I think Emily's a great one to help us do that. I wouldn't feel comfortable deciding where to cut by half. So thank you, Emily.
Do we want to can you all give me a deadline? Because if I don't have a deadline, I'm not going to do it. And the deadline is not going to be next meeting because that's too late. Because ideally, people 2 weeks from now-ish, would that be? So 2 weeks for me to do it and then 2 weeks for everyone to have a look at it. Does that seem reasonable or?
That's great by my standards. The 24th of April is what, Wednesday? I could get it sent out to the committee.
Okay, I'm going to put it on my calendar. Revision due by 6 p.m. Okay. I will get that to you all by 6 on the 24th.
Yeah. And my only other advice would be try to make some reference to the commission's goal as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'll probably have questions, and this is just like a first revision, I guess. But I will try to include that code.
In terms of the inventory, staff had begun the process of reviewing really some of the older subdivision plans that we have records of, the street tree layouts and street tree plans. And a lot of those plans are outdated and the trees have long since been removed and that sort of thing. But at the same time, it does have quite a bit of good information as to where certain species are, and not just in the right of way, but also in public storm ponds, which are maintained by the city. And the focus had been to try to find ash trees initially. And so that's kind of where we focused. Haven't made much progress in the last month on that at all. But I was going to present what I had found to the committee when we had compiled that information. So there were at least 3 subdivisions that had ash trees in them and several storm ponds.
Dave, I see you came off of mute when we were talking about the letter. Is there something you were looking to add there?
No, not
Oh, okay.
specifically.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, I like that plan. Pete?
Yeah, okay. I think we're about 2/3 of the way through that. The next piece would be to focus on non-residential developments, which all have landscaping plans developed by landscape architects. And, the tree selection is put forth by a registered landscape architect and then approved by the planning department. So we have a whole bunch of work to do on that aspect of it, i.e. multifamily and commercial properties as well. So that would be private property. The initial effort is on street trees. And as far as parks goes, Tom Kissinger and I had a discussion about that as well, and how the Parks Department wants to get an inventory on parks, which would augment the public inventory side of this. So I think the goal here for the inventory piece was June 30th, 2025. But most likely we will be doing inventory in the summer of 2025. So it wouldn't be completed by then.
Pete, do you have information about, you said there's grant funding available. Is there like a deadline for that, or what is is it something that is available every year, or is it just like for the next year, or what is the timetable on something like that?
I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I can find out.
I'm just trying to think of like what should be a priority, like, in the next 2 months versus like the next 6 months.
Yeah. I can send out an email about that. I'd have to do some research because Oregon Community Trees has small grants, for more publicity type oriented things, but the stuff that we can get grants for from Oregon Department of Forestry would actually significantly help with an inventory project. They also have software. So they have a cloud-based database that you would be uploading the city data to, so that they have a statewide inventory. And Sam knows more about that than anybody I've talked to so far. So, but with the new money that's flowing into Oregon Department of Forestry, they've been able to hire more staff and develop more grants. So yeah, I'm happy to do some more research on that.
And just one more question. When you say it would like significantly help, what does that look like?
Well, I think it's the technical side of it. If we're going to use volunteers, and the volunteers are going to use apps on their smartphones, which is, if you're going to do a volunteer effort, that's kind of the way it does. But there's also potentially trained inventory folks that already know how to do it. But I'm literally just relaying a conversation I had on Arbor Day morning.
Okay.
And didn't have much focus and time to talk through it more with the ODF representative, Allison Herrera. But yeah, I think I'll come back with more info about that, and I can save it send it to you via email in the meantime.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of options and a lot of opportunity there. And in terms of getting a street inventory, that sounds like kind of like a saving grace to get that kickstarted.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about USDA also and APHIS, particularly if we're looking for emerald ash borer. I don't think we could make a case for Asian longhorn beetle right now, but APHIS is APHIS.
Yeah.
They like literally spend millions every year training people to map trees or inventory trees, and then also, of course, to inspect trees for pests, particularly invasive species. So I just wonder if they've thought through this and if there is any avenues here to like chase that money. And I'm just bringing it up because that's the group that I worked with was with APHIS. When we were part of a team that would like quickly get trained on the sign of the bugs that we were after, and then quickly get deployed into areas to rapidly inventory measure and identify infested trees.
I wish Tom was still on because he could talk about that. He's got a lot of experience working with the feds on that sort of thing, I think. So if we're talking about city-owned lands, parks, works, those are the staff that would benefit from that level of training. Street trees are the responsibility of the private property owner to maintain and care for. But what we've traditionally done in planning is just, get out public information. We did utility flyer about the emerald ash borer, put up a web page about it. I don't know how effective that was. And it didn't really have any involvement from Parks or Public Works. So if we're talking about city-owned lands, those two entities need to be involved in the solution.
Yeah, and I'm honestly a little bit ignorant about how the process works. I think it's possible APHIS may only show up when an emergency has been declared or something like that. So that might not be an avenue for funding, but I don't know. I still have a couple of old friends from APHIS that I can contact and ask them what they think, like where they might look for funding if they were sitting in our chairs. I don't know if there's anything there, but I'll dig around a little.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then focus on a grant and go after it.
Yeah.
I do feel like the ODF is our first point, contact with this initial effort.
Yeah.
They're the ones that have already done it in several Oregon communities. And Sam has already worked with that program as well.
Yeah, even right here, you just came across something just with such a good Google search, a disaster prevention program. Like that sounds like what we're talking about. We would like to prevent the emerald ash borer disaster, or at least delay or minimize. So, okay. Some threads to pull on there.
I agree. I'm happy to follow through on those.
Okay. Is that the full discussion for tree code recommendation or anybody else?
When would we want to schedule that meeting? I think it's going to be a focus meeting.
Like a work session?
Yeah.
How's folks' availability toward the end of April? It's within the next 2 weeks. Like on the Thursday evening of the 25th, would folks be able to do a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting in my office?
25th of April.
I cannot do that day. There's a PRAC meeting and I also have to work.
Oh,
that.
PRAC.
Yeah.
I also see, and I don't know what it is, but there's a Greater Oregon City Outreach Project going on that date at 4:30. And I don't know how long it goes.
I mean, can we do a Wednesday? Does that make sense?
Well, I was going to suggest as a separate issue that the May meeting, we shoot for a June meeting and have a work session in between rather than a regular NRC meeting.
So we'll be extending the time we're discussing this.
Pardon?
Does that mean we're extending the period of time we're discussing this?
I feel like this letter needs some work and we're trying to compress it into a pretty short time frame. Emily said you could get a draft by the 24th, but then we'd need this committee to look at it. I could send it out to the committee and get comments back by, if we can get comments back by the 1st of April, that'd be good.
1st of May.
Sorry, month is it? Yeah, 1st of May. Yeah. And then we make the recommendation at the next regular meeting on May 8th. So maybe what we just do is let's just have a work session on the 8th. Work through it then. How does that sound?
That works with that. Were you thinking in person or Zoom or?
So I also wanted to have a discussion about in-person meetings, you guys, now that we've got most of you here. More than happy to go back to in-person meetings, but some of you like the Zoom format because of your home situation. So,
I think so many of the groups operate on both. That is,
it would be a hybrid.
It'd be a hybrid meeting.
Yeah. And we'd hold it at City Hall, just like PRAC. I guess the other question is when would you want to start? Because we kind of switched to 6 p.m. because of COVID, and we can switch back to 7 if folks feel that's better. But we don't have to decide that right away.
I guess I'll share my opinion is any of those are fine. I'm still fine with the 6 o'clock time. I do think that we should move to a hybrid meeting where there's an option to be in person and an option to be remote. I think there's a lot to be gained from those in-person interactions. Unless like you're the only one there in person, Pete, or I'm the only one there, or whatever. You gotta get at least 2 people in a room to make it worth it. But I will show up in person whenever I can, and I think it'll be over 50% of the time because I enjoy that and I think there's value. And there's no cost or anything, right? Like we can switch to hybrid at any time.
It's easy enough. So. We just tell Willamette Falls that we're doing it at the chambers down there at City Hall, and they come and, that doesn't change at all. So there's no cost difference now.
Okay. So
I was going to suggest on this meeting have it at 6, just in case we have a long discussion.
Okay.
I like the 6 o'clock time too. I think getting done by like 8:30 versus 9:30 is preferable for me at least. And yeah, likewise, I guess any meeting that I'm able to attend in person, I would do that, and I would guess that would be most meetings.
Dave, thoughts on 6 o'clock and on switching to hybrid?
Yeah, I'm happy to switch to whatever. I don't know how good my physical attendance will be. I know that going to 7 o'clock will probably improve it. I don't, to Emily's point, I don't particularly want to go later. So yeah, I'll work with what's decided, and would love to attend in person.
When I was suggesting the 6 o'clock, I wasn't doing it from the standpoint that that's when all our meetings should be. I was just saying in case the work session went longer, 6 might be a better time to have. We could have the discussion on whether 6 or 7 is better than when we go later into the season.
Okay. Yeah, typically when we've had the work session before the regular meeting, we just say that the regular meeting won't start before 7 in that situation. And we can be flexible as long as we get the agenda out 1 week ahead of time so folks know.
So I guess everybody, my suggestion is that we just move right away to a hybrid meeting for the next one. And my thinking is to keep the 6 o'clock time for now, and have it be an open discussion point that we bring up in the next meeting. Do we still like 6 o'clock? There may be room here, I think, to consider like 6:30. Like if 6:30 meant Dave could show up 25% more, or would want to, then maybe that makes sense for us to do. I think I don't think we have to be too locked into either 6 or 7.
No, we
can
don't.
kind of
Yeah.
take it one meeting at a time for a while until we settle into what works for the group. I certainly want to get Sam's opinion. Also, I don't think she'd have any objection to keeping the time the same, and I don't think she'd have any objection to having it be hybrid. So any different opinions on that?
I like that you're thinking outside the box by suggesting a intermediate between 6 and 7. Didn't occur to me, but yeah, 6:30 would be great. That sounds good. Dave, how does that work for you?
It's all week to week. There's spring soccer season, and there's 2 parents and 4 kids, so I haven't had to log in from a soccer field yet, but probably that day is coming. So
the technology is here.
Let's do what's best for the group, and I'll fit in where I can.
Okay, so I'll just restate here. I think let's keep the time at 6 until we have Emily's input. So just for this next meeting that we're going to be planning and Pete's going to be scheduling, we'll have the hybrid offering and the time the same. And should we make it a discussion point, Pete, on the next agenda, or do we just chat about it?
I just wanted to bounce it off.
Okay.
You guys, well, Doug was here still. I think we already did get kind of input from Sam on it, and I agree with you, Brian. That I feel like Sam was fairly flexible, and 6:30 is great. We can do that too. Yep.
Okay. I don't want to change the time until we have heard from Sam.
Okay.
I don't want that to come from me.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll ask her.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Okay. So then, Pete, we're ready to move to communications.
I think so.
Okay, let's do that.
Let's see. So, yeah. Just reiterate, we had a great Arbor Day. We have renewed our contract with Friends of Trees through 2025. They are able to secure other grants as well. So we're hopeful that they can offer pruning workshops. Right now, the contract that we have with Friends of Trees is just covering planting. And the pruning workshops that Friends of Trees has done in the past have been supported through other means, such as the Metro Enhancement Grant, or funding that they're able to secure through their sources. But they have expressed to me that they still want to continue to do that as funds become available. But our focus with planning is to subsidize the planting program. So I just want to let you know about that. And let's see, coming up on May, I just wanted to connect with you, Brian, and see which date you and Sam wanted to speak to the city commission. I think it was May 1st or May 15th, but I can't remember which one. And whether it was both of you or just one of you.
Okay. My thinking is that I would love to have that presentation be done by Sam.
Okay.
As kind of a
As the chair. Yeah.
Yeah, especially as a new chair. I think it'll be good for us as a body to have our new leader out in front of the group. So I can make either of those dates happen. So I'll defer to whichever that works for her.
Okay, great. I'll see what she says there. April 17th, Nancy Broshot will be awarded the Oregon Heritage Tree Hero Award by the Oregon Travel Information Council Heritage Tree Program. So Sam is going to present that award to Nancy with the mayor on April 17th for all the work that Nancy's done on the NRC and working on code and promoting heritage trees. Previous winners of the award, I think the award's only been around for about 4 years now. And Dorothy Dee Dalsrud won it in 2021. And then some other folks. So far, Oregon City is doing pretty good on that.
Nice. I'm disappointed I can't attend that one.
That's at the beginning of the commission meeting, I presume.
Yes.
Okay.
Presentation. Yeah. Sorry, ceremonies. Yeah, ceremonies and progress. The agenda is probably published. I haven't checked my inbox. So, but yeah, I confirmed that Sam's going to be there, and Nancy too.
Is that going to be recorded?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I don't know if I'm easy about it, but I'd like to watch that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Other news from the planning division. We are currently still working with Department of Land Conservation and Development on the climate friendly and equitable communities requirements that the state has put out. Those are principally targeting what are called parking mandates and the removal or reduction of parking mandates in zoning code. There's been several work sessions with this, well, at least one work session with the city commission about it. We applied to DLCD to get consulting assistance to do some code amendments that are more targeted, rather than the city commission's direction has not been to lift parking minimums citywide, but to have a more targeted approach within the town's regional center, which is our mixed-use downtown area, and anywhere within a half mile of our frequent transit corridors. So when you look at a map of that, it picks up a pretty sizable chunk of the city. And depending on which city you're looking at within the metro areas, I think, most cities have decided to go with what the state wants, which is to lift parking requirements completely. But other cities are following more along the lines of what Oregon City wants to do, which is still maintain some minimum parking requirements in the areas that they feel are the most important. And there's a lot of code and policy put out by the state about this. A lot of grant funding available to help cities meet the goal. In addition to lifting parking requirements, It also focuses on solar collection, grants, putting in place the infrastructure for electrical vehicle charging for new developments of a certain size, and also increasing canopy requirements for parking lots over half an acre in size. So if you propose a new parking lot, the state's going to require a lot more tree canopy and require that local governments follow suit. So that's called CFAC, and we're required to comply with that by end of this year, but possibly we can get an extension through mid-2025. I don't have any other reports from planning yet.
Okay. Then I think we're on to future agenda item.
So we'll obviously be talking about the tree recommendation letter. But did anybody, I also wanted to ask the committee for suggestions about people to invite for presentations. So you can just send me your ideas, but my hope is that we will have a presentation at every meeting here on out.
Have we seen a presentation from the Native Fish Society on the NRC?
Nope.
Okay, yeah. I know. I think their building is close to the library. I see it every so often. I know McLaughlin had somebody speak at one of their neighborhood association meetings in the past 2 years. And I unfortunately wasn't able to make that meeting, but I heard it was really good. And that might be a good one to have present if they're available.
Native Fish Society, okay. The Watershed Council, Doug.
Well, the thing, one of the things that I saw the solar eclipse is they did have the community both invasive removal, I think primarily, but maybe plantings too at Atkinson Park. That was mentioned actually by Mr. Kissinger. I wasn't there for it. There's a big focus that's still going in on where Holcomb Creek comes into Abernathy Creek. We have a major project there where we've created situations that should permit the gravel to settle out for spawning areas. We put in trees there to stay large area for where there's a lot of blackberries, and those have to be dealt with next. And of course, that's never an easy issue. What I think I would do is recommend that we do invite the Watershed Council to make a presentation to the Natural Resource Committee, because they have several other projects that are going on.
That would be wonderful. Would love to see them.
Doug, I want to prompt you or poke you just a little bit more as you're re-engaging with this committee, and you have so much time, energy spent into thinking about the things that we're thinking about. Do you have any items or issues or topics that are near and dear to your heart that maybe we might want to discuss in the next 3, 6, 12 months?
And it actually fits into, I think, Mr. Kissinger's view of parks, probably more trees in them. But I think there ought to be some discussion. I'm a supporter, of course, using native material, but we know we're losing a lot of that to drought conditions. And I think it would be nice to have perhaps somebody to discuss what opportunities exist. There have been, for example, discussions where red alder is taking a hit in the upland areas, and apparently white alder, which is south of the valley here, is far more tolerant to drought. And so I think that there are all kinds of discussions of possibly bringing other trees that are not far out of our habitat, but can deal with our drought conditions better. And that's something that we might want to give some thought to.
I like that.
It's not going to improve.
Yeah. Discussion of the future native trees of this area. Is that?
Yes,
right?
But it's not looking at the standpoint of removing them. For example,
Right.
Red alder is going to do well in areas that are near streams and so forth. It's a case of where we're going to lose it if we don't do something else.
Yeah. Emily, Dave talked about that as a future agenda item to kind of break the ice and start the conversation. Okay, thumbs up.
Yeah, I think I know that there's a really great YouTube program that the Clackamas Master Gardeners. It's called 10-Minute University. Sherry, forget her last name, but she used to be very involved with the zoo as well. I wonder if the Master Gardeners would have recommendations as to who to get to do a possible presentation. If like one of their members would do that. I know they work with a lot of like the local nurseries and they just have a lot of resources. But Sistis, I know Sistis and Zara are working extensively with drought tolerant plants. They do a lot of natives, especially manzanita. Do larger trees too. Like Sistis has a lot of evergreen oaks that are hardy in this area, but don't occur this far north. I know there's like a lot of like native oak in the southern part of Oregon and northern California that have somewhat limited ranges, but that Sistis is trying to distribute up here because they make such excellent wildlife habitat and food, but also, they're depending on how you define native. Are we talking about Willamette Valley? Are we talking about Oregon? Are we talking about Pacific Northwest? Are we talking about West Coast? So depending on how strict we're talking when we talk about natives, I think that they would potentially. I don't know. Sean's really busy, but yeah, I'll reach out to the master gardeners to see if they have anybody that they might refer to do a presentation.
Yeah, Doug, thank you for that. I again think that's a great idea. Pete, have we given enough there?
Yeah,
to go on.
These are great. I love the ideas, especially reaching out to the Clackamas Master Gardeners and see if they have any recommendations on who can present. I'm going to ask if Oregon Department of Forestry or Oregon Community Trees has any recommendations as well. I know there are resources out there, but in terms of staff available to, or, folks who are willing to come and make a presentation about this, I can do some research. But these are good. This is a good start. Thank you.
Great.
And if you have any other suggestions, send them my way. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pacific Horticulture is another really great resource. They don't have like a physical location. It's just kind of like an organization that does podcasts and op-ed pieces on various issues in landscaping and horticulture. But they're really, really kind of fascinating resource, and they interview people who are doing a lot of things with drought tolerant trees all over the world. Like I listened to one recently about drought tolerant trees in Australia because in the past couple of years they've had wildfires, and there's just a lot of really, really interesting people doing research on things that I think are fairly new to being researched. So kind of first time for everyone. So yeah, that's another. I don't think they could give us a speaker, but if anyone wants to look them up, they have really, really great resources and based in the Northwest.
We could tour your nursery, Emily.
Oh yeah, it's all inside. I don't know how applicable it would be, but welcome over for a tour.
That'd be great.
Okay.
field trip.
Any more thoughts or comments about future agenda items from the group? All right, then Pete, last call. Anything that you'd like to add before we adjourn?
No, thank you. I'm good. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, then what do we have to say? This meeting is hereby adjourned.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everybody.